God is good all the time. I feel like this microphone is alive today. Is it too loud? Is it just right? What do you think? It's all right? All right. Either way, usually I can't hear it because I'm behind the speakers. And I just changed the heat, so we'll get a little warmer in here. I think we had it still from yesterday. We had a blood drive here yesterday, and the Red Cross likes it at a nice warm 65. And I think the thermostat was still set to that. So that is changed. Well, let's be a people of prayer. God above, you know the names that we lifted up to you, and we just pray for your healing mercies. For the springtime, we give thee thanks. For the season of Lent, we give thee thanks. For the sun that's coming down, we give thee thanks. Keep us safe until we see each other again, and may the words of our hearts and the meditations of our minds be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our rock and our redeemer. Amen. This is it. We are at the end of Genesis. 50 chapters. Now, we skipped a few in there, but for the most part, it's been a long road, and I want to commend you for making it this far. Genesis 49 ended with the line, when Jacob had finished giving instructions to his sons, he drew his feet up into the bed, breathed his last, and was gathered to his people. So you can just imagine that he was just sitting there, gave his instructions, laid down, and that was it. End of 49, and so that's where 50 starts with Jacob still in the room with Joseph. Can I get someone, and I think I know who, can I get someone to read 1 through 3?
Joseph threw himself on his father and wept all over him and kissed him. Then Joseph directed the physicians in his service to embalm his father Israel. So the physicians embalmed him, taking a full 40 days, for that was the time required for embalming. And the Egyptians mourned for him 70 days.
Joseph fell on his father's face, wept over, kissed. The passing of Jacob in the presence of his sons was a deeply moving and dramatic scene. And it is. For those who have been in a room when someone passed, it is something sad but yet special. Mourned for how many days? Who knows? 70 days. The whole nation of Egypt. A royal mourning period in Egypt at that time was 72 days. So you get the royal treatment, but just knock a couple days off because you're important, but you're not that important. Yeah. So he got the Egyptian treatment of embalming. For the ancient Jewish people and even traditional Jews today, embalming's not a thing. That's not a Jewish treatment. We are ash, and to ash we shall return. They don't do that. Cremation or leave them out. Well, not like leave them out, but when Jesus was buried, he was buried in a borrowed tomb, right? In a fresh garden. The idea was this: you lay him in there for about a year. After a year, you got the body. After a year, they don't take as much space, and you can in the ossuary boxes, and you've seen the movies with the catacombs where all the skulls and all the bones are in. When you're short on space, and not everyone gets 6 foot by 5 feet by whatever it is. It's one reason he had to be embalmed. Remember what they did with the body? Yeah, he's not getting buried right there. And that's where we get to next. So let's do verses 4 through 9.
When the days of mourning had passed, Joseph said to Pharaoh's court, "If I have found favor in your eyes, speak to Pharaoh for me. Tell him, my father made me swear on an oath and said, I am about to die. Bury me in the tomb I dug for myself in the land of Canaan. Now let me go up and bury my father, then I will return. Pharaoh said, Go up and bury your father, as he made you swear to do so. So Joseph went up to bury his father. All Pharaoh's officials accompanied him, the dignitaries of his court and all the dignitaries of Egypt, besides all the members of Joseph's household and his brothers, and those belonging to his father's household. Only their children and their flocks and herds were left in Goshen. Chariots and horsemen also went up with him. It was a very large company.
The fact that Joseph made his initial request not directly to the ruler of Pharaoh but to the court is kind of a detail that would be noted by true witnesses of the events, not made up by a storyteller. Joseph explained the solemn promise his father required of him. And Pharaoh gave him the liberty to keep that promise and bury Israel in the land of Canaan. Go on up. Sometimes y'all make it easy on your relatives on where you want to be buried. Sometimes y'all make it difficult. I love my dad. He died 2013, 12 years ago now, and cremated, and then easy peasy, we're going to put him in the cemetery, but he's still actually up on Mom's shelf up here, most of them. Because he wanted 4 places where his ashes would go. I want ashes to go someplace in England there was a place, anyway, England. He wanted to be shot out of a muzzle loader at a place down here, like actually packed in, and then we did a hiking trip once in Wyoming that's 10 miles in, 10 miles out in the Wind River Range. And he says, put some of my ashes there. I'm like, stop it. You're making this too complicated. Like, no, this would be good. You and all the kids can go up and do this. My brother did it with my other brother. Just don't make it complicated. Make it easy. Within reason. This is a dramatic burial, though. The entire clan gathered together to pay tribute to the man who was the last link with the patriarchs. The life of this man's grandfather overlapped with the sons of Noah. That's like there's historical links here. Martin Luther remarked that there's no burial recorded in the scriptures quite as honorable as this, or with such wealth of detail. They mourned him with great and very solemn lamentation. This was no doubt a day of rededication of the sons of Israel to the God of Israel. The God of the great covenant made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The dedication of to the God of Israel would be tested over the next 400 years, but they would survive. Yeah. And I could just imagine all these Canaanites are like, who are these people? What kind of caravan is this? What are these Egyptians doing here in Canaan? Yeah. All right, 10 to 14. 10 to 14.
When they reached the threshing floor of Atad near Jordan, they lamented loudly and bitterly. And there Joseph observed a 7-day period of mourning for his father. When the Canaanites who lived there saw the mourning at the threshing floor of Atad, they said, the Egyptians are holding a solemn ceremony of mourning. That is why that place near Jordan is called Abel Mizraim. So Jacob and his sons did as he had commanded them. They carried him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave in the field of Machpelah near Mamre, which Abram had bought, along with the field as a burial place from Ephraim the Hittite. After burying his father, Joseph returned to Egypt together with his brothers and all the others who had gone with him to bury his father.
Again, the Canaanites are looking around. What are all these Egyptians doing here? But they were not strong enough to say, Egyptians, go home. But they're going to come through, and then they're going to leave. His sons did for him just as he commanded them. Jacob's sons had often opposed or disappointed him in life. They were very careful to honor him in his death. So yes, this is the cave purchased by Abram. The only part of the land of Canaan that Abram held deed to. The burial place of Sarah, of Abram, of Isaac, Rebekah, of Leah. It's the only place that they had land rights. Trying to think of land rights. When the pioneers were coming on over, this was all wilderness on the way to Oregon. Oregon was one of those disputed territories. Is it owned by the British or is it owned by the Americans? For the longest time, they shared. Like, there's not enough people to worry about it yet. But after a while, people were buying land, or they were building houses, and like, what government aid do we have to pay taxes to? Let's not worry about that right now. But if someone comes in and says, "No, I want that property," who do I talk to and say, "No, this is my claim"? And so the Methodists. Let me pick on the Methodists. The very first church that was in the Oregon Territory was a Methodist church by Jason Lee. Came across, made a couple trips anyway, started a mission just north of Salem, and tried to work with the native tribes there. Eventually, he found his way to Oregon City and Salem area, and a lot of some Americans started showing up, but a lot more British people were coming in, and they were like, "Well, who gets the land claims? Who decides who gets what's land?" And so Jason Lee wrote back to the east and says, we need more people for mission work. We actually need more people to have votes if we ever vote on who gets what. So the Methodists sent 50 people called the Great Reinforcement. Went around, stopped at the Sandwich Islands, which is now Hawaii, and came back this way. They even brought a potential bride for Jason Lee, who was single as single could be. But they recruited her like, "Hey, you're like 28. We got a single pastor out in Oregon. Do you mind traveling 2,500 miles to see if you want to marry him?" They got married. But the Great Reinforcement showed up, and they had a vote at Champouie, Oregon, which is along the river north of Salem, to vote, do we want to be British or do we want to be American? And they voted they wanted to be American, and so they sent their plea to Congress, and the Oregon Territory was born. But it all came about because they were looking around like, I think this is my property, but there's no government here to say that's true. Land rights. I could bury my kid in this cave, my dad in this cave, because this belongs to us. More Methodist history for you. Is this boring you? No. All right. Methodist history. So John Wesley. Let's see if I can figure out how to. I'm not gonna act this out. I weigh too much for the table. So John Wesley, a preacher who went around preaching the good news. He was doing things differently than other pastors were in the area. He was Church of England. He was an Anglican priest. John Wesley would never say he was a Methodist pastor. He was an Anglican priest through and through, but there was a Reformation going on in the Anglican Church. The Methodists were the forefront of it. The whole idea was, can we make church relevant again? Can we spread scriptural holiness throughout the land? Not only worry about the soul, but also worry about the social ills of the populace. And it took off, and you had all these Methodists running around in these Anglican churches. And some Anglican priests did not like John Wesley because he was just too enthusiastic. Enthusiasm was almost Pentecostal. So he went to Epworth, where his dad was the pastor for so long, and said, "Hey, I'm traveling through. Can I preach in the church?" And the priest says, "No, you can't preach in the church." So John Wesley announced to everyone, and actually the priest says, "You have to get off the property. Would you leave? Get off the property." So John Wesley said, "At 4:00 this afternoon, I will be preaching on my father's tomb on the grave. And it was an above grave. All are welcome. Because that was the one place the priest could not kick him out because they owned Dad's tomb. So if you ever do a Google search, John Wesley, Dad's tomb, John Wesley is preaching on top of the mausoleum, and like 3,000 to 5,000 people showed up. Yeah. Land rights are important. How did I get on that? I don't know.
Now, this says you can still visit the Tomb of the Patriarchs, by the way, in the West Bank.
If they really know where it is.
Well, what they're saying is 3 biblical couples, Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, and Leah, are said to be buried underneath the cave that you are not allowed into, but they say it's the cave of Paklia, and it's their burial place, and it is preserved. It's supposed to be the second holiest site after the Wailing Wall.
I always get, and maybe it is, but kingdoms have come and through there over and over and over and over again, and things get lost. And honestly, it's like I shared this Sunday with Zacchaeus' tree. Here's the sycamore that Zacchaeus climbed. You can find that in Jericho. That tree is not that old. But somewhere along the line said, this tree looks really old. Maybe this is the tree, and they rope it off, and this is now the tree. Where maybe belief is more important than fact. Like in the old and medieval times when they would say, hey, this, I have St. Paul's pinky bone. And there are church relics all over the place in Europe. Different castles have St. Peter's hand. Like 3 castles have St. Peter's hand, which blows my mind. I don't know how many hands he had. But yeah, and honestly, they're probably just chicken bones that they were just selling on the. If you go to Jerusalem today, you'll say, all right, show us where Jesus was crucified. And depending on which tour agency you go with, they will point you to 2 different directions. They don't know. It's been 2,000 years. All right, verses 15 to 21. 15 to 21.
When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, "What if Joseph holds a grudge against us and pays us back for all the wrongs we did to him?" So they sent word to Joseph saying, "Your father left these instructions before he died. This is what you are to say to Joseph. I ask you to forgive your brothers the sins and the wrongs they committed in treating you so badly. Now please forgive the sins of the servants of the God of your father." When their message came to him, Joseph wept. His brothers then came and threw themselves down before him. "We are your slaves," they said. But Joseph said to them, "Don't be afraid. I am in the place of God. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children." And he assured them and spoke kindly to them.
The brothers feared that perhaps Joseph would turn on them after Jacob's death. Knowing human nature, this was certainly possible. Here they freely acknowledge all the evil that they did, and they worried about what kind of justice could be given to them, righteous retribution. Joseph would certainly have been able to pull this kind of stunt off. We have to. Maybe Joseph is just waiting for Dad to die before he gets even with us. Do you ever have to wait until someone passes away for you to do something? Before you can let me say it like this. So at my last church, storage is a bane of every church. No church ever has any storage. We had banners that we hung up in worship. And we had banners from 1940 all the way the felt banners that you'd stick the glue and then you'd cut them out. Long time. And they were like the whole closet filled with banners. These are banners we are never going to use again. Ever. Because they're falling apart. And they're like, they look like they're, so just for fun, one day before our worship, we had a worship team. Before they met, they were in charge of the banners. I said, can we go through the banners? We have no storage, and they're a fire hazard. They're just something that just go up in flames. But can we go through them and thin them out a little? So I laid all the banners out, and it was a room just a little bigger than this, and it took up most of the room. All the banners laying there. And we walked through as a team, keep, don't keep, keep, don't keep. I'm sure have you ever done this at your house before? Keep, don't keep, don't keep. We had about 80 banners on the floor. We got rid of 2. We can't get rid of this one because Mabel, who's still alive and 98 years old, she will know if we throw this away. And good Lord. So in my calendar, wait till Mabel dies before I can throw most of these away. Since I've been here, Mabel has passed, and they got rid of most of those banners. They were never going to use them again. I was on a banner kick. Have you seen the these guys? There's a couple companies that we get these kind of banners from, and God bless the homemade ones, but these look a little better, maybe. Yeah, we still have some of our old ones. You might notice one in the back of the sanctuary. Talks about resurrection. It comes for the last 3 years. It came out every Easter, and then we put it away. Last year we totally forgot to put it away, and it's just stayed up since then. So if you look in the back of this, why in Advent did we have an Easter banner? Like, shh, because Pastor Mike didn't want to go back up in the balcony and put it away. Yeah. I have a stack of music in my office that was given to me by a saint here in this church that I didn't want. And it's music that I don't think I'll ever use here. And I have gone through, but I have to wait. And maybe someone is waiting for you. Dad, I told my kids, God bless America. We told my kids, Dad, Mom, what happens to us should something happen to you? Like they're old enough now to actually we say we're gonna go. Every year, my wife and I we go through our will. You're gonna go live with Aunt Shelley. Oh, well, Shelley doesn't have space, and there's 3 of us. Christian's now aging out, but said, don't worry, there's life insurance. Well, how much life insurance? So we told them the amount, and they're like, so actually this would be a good thing. Like, no, don't say that. Don't say that. Don't you want us here, right? I don't know. $1 million sounds pretty good, Dad. Check the manner of our passing before you give any money to our children. So the brothers here, going back to the Bible here. So the brothers are scared, legitimately scared. Was Dad being alive the thing that kept Joseph's hand? And here we have Joseph saying, don't be afraid. No retribution. If none of this happened, we would all still be in Canaan, starving. We might not make it. Ultimately, our lives are in God's hands. Again, Romans chapter 8, for we all know that things work together for good to those who love God, but to those who are called according to his purpose. Now, of course, they didn't have Romans when they were doing this story, but the fact of the matter is it's still true.
I noticed that this past reading that we just did in verse 18, where the brothers then came and threw themselves down before him, and And they said, we are your slaves. They said, which fulfills the prophecy in chapter 37, verse 7 and 8, where he, had that dream that they would bow down to him. And in verse 8, they're saying, oh, you expect us to be bowing down to you? And here they're bowing down to him. Also in chapter 41, verse 43, they're also bowing down to him. And in chapter 44, verse 14, they're bowing down again.
His dreams came true.
Yeah.
True patriarch. Joseph's love for his brothers was shown not only in feelings and words, but in practical action, providing for his brothers and their families. You might have a patriarch in your family, maybe a matriarch. I think most families have one. In the olden times, it was patriarch was not only the elder, the one who knew everything or could tell you what to do, but also cared for you, made sure that you were fed, were housed, had a place in the family life. I think we kind of changed it a little bit. Right now, patriarch is just, we have to run it by grandpa to make sure it's okay, even though grandpa doesn't do anything for us except tell us what to do. But in the olden days, patriarch was provider, caregiver, their own little fiefdom, if you will. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah. All right, let's do the death of Jacob just died, and now Joseph gets to die in less than a chapter, 22 to 25.
The death of Joseph. Joseph stayed in Egypt along with all his father's family. He lived 110 years and saw the third generation of Ephraim's children. Also the children of Machir, son of Manasseh, were placed at birth on Joseph's knees. Then Joseph said to his brothers, I am about to die, but God will surely come to your aid and take you up out of this land to the land he promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Joseph made the Israelites swear an oath and said, God will surely come to your aid, and then you must carry my bones up from this place.
110, which was in the Egyptian mind a nice round number in Egyptian numerology. They thought that was a blessed life, 110. I don't know how many people ever made it that far. Not yet. I know. How many people in your church are getting older, Pastor Mike? All of them. Yeah, no one's going the other way. He got to see the third generation of Ephraim's children. Like, he stayed around a lot. And even the children of Machir, son of Manasseh, he got to see the great-grandkids coming along. I'm about to die. God will help you. You don't need, this is basically the last of the patriarchs. And we kind of split off in the generations then into the tribes. God will surely come to your aid. You must carry up my bones from this place. And guess where Joseph is going to be buried? Nope, different place. He chooses a totally new place. Now it's been 400 years. And honestly, like I said, maybe they don't know. It's been 400 years. Maybe they don't know where that cave is anymore. He's going to be buried in a place called Shechem. And I'll do the last line here, and then I'll just say a couple things. So Joseph died at 110. And after they embalmed him, went in Egypt to do as the Egyptians. He was placed in a coffin in Egypt. They also had to embalm him because they're going to do something with him. In 400 years, then some, they're going to carry his bones out of Egypt back to the Promised Land. So if you know the story of, the Exodus, the very first chapter, there's a new Pharaoh who does not know this guy named Joseph or why all these Hebrew people are running around. Says they're becoming too numerous, we need to enslave them. So they enslave them, and they're enslaved for 400 years until we get Moses and the burning bush and all that. Let my people go. They get to leave Egypt 400 years later. Would be like, what's 400 years ago from today? 1600s, right? Yeah, we're talking Pilgrim time, 1620. So that's how long they were in slavery. And Joseph, according to Jewish legend, he was not buried in the ground, but he was buried in an above ground mausoleum sort of thing. Because they had a promise of like, all right, we got to find this guy when we go back to Canaan. So we don't bury him, put him in a place that where we can find him. Hebrews 11, chapter 22, Joseph was never buried. His coffin laid above ground for 400 years or so until it was taken back to Canaan. Exodus 13, they have him going back to Canaan. Joshua chapter 24, they're burying him in Shechem. Different place than his parents.